Discover Canada History Timeline. The study guide Discover Canada contains a lot of dates to remember. Here are all the important dates in chronological order, taken from all chapters. This timeline should help you remember all the dates. 1215 Signing of Magna Carta in England. 1497 European exploration began with the expedition of John Cabot, who was the first to draw a map of Canada's east coast. 1534 to 1542 Jacques Cartier made 3 voyages across the Atlantic, claiming the land for King Francis I of France. 1550s The name of Canada began appearing on maps. 1604 The first European settlement north of Florida was established by French explorers Pierre de Monts and Samuel de Champlain. 1608 Samuel de Champlain built a fortress at what is now Quebec City. 1610 English settlement began. 1670 King Charles I of England granted the Hudson's Bay Company exclusive trading rights over the watershed draining into Hudson Bay. 1700s The maple leaf was adopted as a symbol in Canada. 1701 The French and the Iroquois made peace. 1755 to 1763 Great upheaval. During the war between Britain and France, more than 2/3 of the Acadians were deported from their homeland. 1758 The first representative assembly was elected in Halifax, Nova Scotia. 1759 The British defeated the French in the Battle of the Plains of Abraham at Quebec City, marking the end of France's empire in America. 1763 The Aboriginal territorial rights were first guaranteed. 1774 The British Parliament passed the Quebec Act. 1776 The 13 British colonies to the south of Quebec declared independence and formed the United States. Joseph Brant led thousands of Loyalist Mohawk Indians into Canada. 1791 The Constitutional Act was passed and divided the province of Quebec into Upper Canada, later Ontario. The name Canada became official. 1793 Upper Canada became the first province in the empire to move toward abolition. 1800s Ice hockey was developed in Canada. 1805 The defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte's fleet in the Battle of Trafalgar. 1812 The United States launched an invasion in June to conquer Canada. 1814 The American attempt to conquer Canada failed. 1815 The Duke of Wellington defeated Napoleon. 1832 The Montreal Stock Exchange opened. 1833 British Parliament abolished slavery throughout the empire. 1804 The Upper and Lower Canada were united as the Province of Canada. 1847 to 1848 Nova Scotia became the first British North American colony to attain full responsible government. 1849 Sir Louis Hippolyte Lafontaine, a champion of French language rights, became the first head of a responsible government. 1854 The Victoria Cross, the highest honor available to Canadians, started to be awarded that year. 1857 Ottawa, located on the Ottawa River, was chosen as the capital by Queen Victoria. 1860s The Parliament buildings were completed. 1864 Sir Leonard Tilley suggested the term Dominion of Canada. 1867 On the 1st of July, the Fathers of Confederation established the Dominion of Canada, the birth of the country that we know today. The British Parliament passed the British North America Act, now known as the Constitution Act. Sir John Alexander Macdonald, a father of Confederation, became Canada's first Prime Minister. Canada became a constitutional monarchy. The responsibilities of the federal and provincial governments were defined. 1869 Canada took over the vast northwest region from the Hudson's Bay Company. 1873 the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, was created. 1890s Yukon Gold Rush. 1891 basketball was invented by Canadian James Naismith. 1916 Manitoba became the first province to grant voting rights to women. 1917 the Canadian Corps captured Vimy Ridge, securing the Canadians' reputation for valor as the shock troops of the British Empire. 1918 most Canadian female citizens aged 21 and over were granted the right to vote in federal elections. 1920 foundation of the Group of Seven, who developed a style of painting to capture the rugged wilderness landscapes. 1921 King George V assigned Canada's national colours, white and red. 1927 the Peace Tower was completed, in memory of the First World War. Old age security was devised. 1929 stock market crashed which led to the Great Depression or the Dirty Thirties. 1934 the Bank of Canada was created. 1940 unemployment insurance, now called employment insurance, was introduced by the federal government. 1944 in the Second World War, the Canadians captured Juno Beach on the 6th of June, as part of the Allied invasion of Normandy on D-Day. 1947 the discovery of oil in Alberta began Canada's modern energy industry. 1948 the Japanese Canadians gained the right to vote. 1951 for the first time, a majority of Canadians were able to afford adequate food, shelter and clothing. 1952 Queen Elizabeth II became Queen of Canada. 1960s Quebec experienced an era of rapid change known as the Quiet Revolution. 1960 Aboriginal people were granted the right to vote. 1965 the new Canadian flag, as we know today, was raised for the first time. The Canada and Quebec pension plans were devised. 1967 Canada started its own honours system with the Order of Canada. 1969 Parliament passed the Official Languages Act, which guarantees French and English services in the federal government across Canada. 1970s the term First Nations began to be used. 1980 Terry Fox, a British Columbian who lost his right leg to cancer at the age of 18, began a cross-country run, the Marathon of Hope, to raise money for cancer research. He became a hero to Canadians. O Canada was proclaimed as the national anthem. 1982 the Constitution of Canada was amended to entrench the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Queen Elizabeth II proclaimed the amended Constitution in Ottawa. 1988 Canada enacted free trade with the United States. 2006 the House of Commons recognized that the Québécois form a nation within a united Canada.